Whether it's been 4 or 14 years since the last time you played RuneScape, you might feel quite lost jumping back into the game. But no worries, I'm going to give you a nice overview in this video on everything you need to know and give you some tips to get right back into our favorite 2001 medieval point-and-click video game. Let's talk about it. Yo, what's going on guys? My name is Chevalric and today we're going to be talking about everything you pretty much missed and some tips and tricks on getting back into RuneScape 3. If you've been a long time follower of the channel, you know that I've done a similar video in the past, but I feel like I can do a better job now and give a better of an overview going even further back. The last video was about the last 5 years. This video will be about pretty much since Dungeoneering came out. It won't be too long and it won't be touching on everything in great detail, but I will still be touching on every little thing that I feel like is very important to jump right back into the game without taking away your actual enjoyment of, you know, having that fresh experience again. Because let's be honest, getting that fresh experience in RuneScape is probably one of the nicest feelings, and it is definitely something you can get after you have not played for a little while. So if you're going to enjoy this video, consider giving it a like. Join in with discussion in the comment section down below. Let me know whatever questions you have or even what tips you have for people returning to the game, what helped you or whatever. Subscribe if you're new. Join the Discord. I'm live on Twitch as well every single day at 6 PM game time, 7 PM EU, 1 PM Eastern Standard Time. And let's just get into this video because I can promote things for the entirety of this year. So, I understand that not everything is needed for everyone in this video. I will have chapters in the description down below or below the video where you can like skip through to something that applies to you. Also, I'll be sprinkling through some money makers here in the video. Instead of just making a money making section at the end of the video, it will be throughout the video. So, without further ado, let's just get into it because I think the best way to get back into RuneScape is doing quests. And I know quest is not everyone's favorite part about RuneScape, but let's be honest, quest is pretty much the reason, or a quest is pretty much the reason or the idea of what's going on in RuneScape right now. If you want to stay up to date with what is going on, I would suggest filtering your quest list at either release order or storyline order. I would just do release order so you can see like which came out in which year, and you can start a new quest line, for example, that started this year, or complete the entire full quest line that was the thing last year with the Daughter of Chaos or Chevalric after Chevalric storyline. Yes, Chevalric is in the game. Even since 2008, you probably don't know, the gods are actually in the game in physical presence because some stuff went down, and I will let you find out what it is because, as I said, I don't want to spoil it. And even getting back into quests, there are some great quests throughout the years that have some decently challenging boss fights, especially if you haven't played RuneScape in a while. Even the Dwarf quest line that has actually been finished now has a slightly difficult boss fight, especially, as I said, if you haven't played for a while. Slisk Endgame come to mind, Nomad's Elegy, and even the newest Extinction quest. All of these have some decently difficult boss fights and might actually be a good way to get back into your account, but you might also be struggling with a little bit of money if you haven't played. Well, don't worry, I have a nice money maker for you. No, for real though, there's this thing called shop runs. You pretty much go to the shops in game, like the fishing shop where you can buy feathers, or you go to the herbal shop that's in Chevalric to buy potion like bomb flasks, or even other shops like rune shops or armor shops where you can just buy things cheaper than they sell on the Grand Exchange. For example, you can buy water runes for, I think it's 5 GP each, and they sell for over 200 on the Grand Exchange due to magic being the meta, and we'll get into that in a little while in this video as well. And I think you can buy like 5,000 of them every single day. That's pretty much 1 million GP profit that you make out of just 25,000 GP. It is literally that simple to make money, and I will link a full-on shop run guide in the description down below, and if I don't forget to put them in the cards, I'll put them there as well. But it's by Nuzz. He pretty much has the ultimate guide on it, so there's no point in me making a guide on it or explaining it in too much detail. But if you haven't played since 2008, and as I said, since Dungeoneering came out, or even Summoning for that matter, there have been 3 new skills released, and we're gonna get a 4th new skill released this year as of me making this video in 2023. The new skills that have been released are Divination, Invention, and Archaeology. Divination is probably the most boring one out of these ones and is more so a support skill for Invention, and I'll explain to you why in just a little bit. But Divination doesn't really have that many uses besides maybe Porters, which is a pocket slot item you can create, which has a certain amount of charges. The best one you can make has 50 charges, and a porter can send things to the bank for you. So if you're wearing a porter and you're mining rocks, instead of it going into your inventory, it actually goes into your bank. Speaking about mining and smithing, it has actually been reworked. You don't have to, you no longer mine one rock at a rock. You could just infinitely stay there, kind of how you can do that with, what's a good example? I wouldn't say fishing, but fishing spots move as well. But pretty much you could just stay at one rock for the entirety, and smithing has been completely reworked to make it a bit more detailed. And the best armor for melee is actually made by smithing. It is called Masterwork. You can also buy it if you're a main, but yeah, mining and smithing are actually good skills right now. Instead of just smithing being a let's blow money on it because you can make rune at 90. Yeah, rune you can now make at 50 at the level that you can wear it. They actually changed those levels as well. Never understood why, but it's a thing. But yeah, mining and smithing have been reworked, but pretty much divination is not that interesting of a skill because it's a support skill for invention. And for invention, you need 80 smithing, 80 divination, and 80 crafting to even be able to train the skill. And that is also why it's called an elite skill, and it's slow to level up, but quite frankly, it's one of the more fast 99/120 skills because, yeah, it goes to 120, just like Dungeoneering, by the way. Divination doesn't, Invention does. But because the experience that you get from siphoning or disassembling items, which makes sense when you do the skill, don't worry, but pretty much from getting the way of the getting experience in that skill is very high, so I don't know why they changed the XP curve, but hey-oh, it's Jagex. But it's an elite skill, so you need those skills to unlock it. There will never be another elite skill. They've said it because they just think it locks out too many people. But anyway, enough ranting. I'm really sorry. I'm passionate about these things, okay? I'm really, really sorry. But Invention pretty much is a skill that allows you to put perks on weapons and gear and even tools for like woodcutting or whatever. And what those perks do are very, very different. For example, you have Precise on your weapons. That gives you just a flat out percentage buff on your weapons, and or something like Equilibrium that reduces your max hit by a certain percentage, but also reduces your minimum hit in a good way. So like your minimum hit will be lower, but your maximum hit will be higher, which overall comes out to being really useful. Or something like Crackling on your armor, which allows your armor to do this electric shock every like minute or so, and it does damage on bosses. And there's a lot of perks like that also goes for gathering things like pickaxes or axes or whatever, where you get a better gathering rate, or you have a chance of burning the material, not as in like fire making, but just literally just deleting it from the game and getting flat experience for it. So you pretty much have a chance of like double experience sometimes from like certain materials that you gather. It's very complex, and I can probably make a 20-minute, 30-minute video on it, but Protoxx has an amazing guide on it. I will link in the description down below. He will explain everything you need to know, but this is definitely a pivotal skill to step up your game in PvM and even in skilling. And you can also make all sorts of other useful things with Invention, but go look at it, go look at his guide, and then you will be up to date. And lastly, my favorite skill out of all of them is Archaeology. Archaeology is pretty much a skill that is, you could say it's mining and smithing with extra steps, that's the meme, but you pretty much are an archaeologist. You dig up relics, and you need to restore the relics by the resources you dig up whilst digging up the relics. And what it does, it unlocks these things called relic powers. And relic powers pretty much give you passive buffs across the game, and they could vary from not like thieving twice as quick, or being able, when you fish, you cook your fish instantly and you get experience for both. There's many, many useful relics, and some of them are for PvM, some of them are for skilling, some of them are for things and activities in the game, I suppose so. And it's a great skill because, especially if you follow the wiki guide, you can just go from spot to spot, and it's the most varied way to train a skill, at least in my personal opinion. And there's some really good mini quests linked to the archaeology skill that you sometimes have to complete to move on to a better completionist spot, or like a better gathering spot in the game. And it's very interesting, trust me. Some of these dig sites seem very boring, and then there's like a hidden tomb under it that you need to go explore. It's sick, trust me. And speaking about things that are sick, and our second moneymaker coming in, this ties into Invention. They're clue scrolls. Clue scrolls are now big money. Remember those U composite bows that you always used to get from doing clues back in the day, and they're worth like 20k, or not even, like 10k or something, and you're like, no, another one of these. Well, now they're worth 1.5 billion GP. Well, million GP. I wish they were 1.5 billion, Jesus Christ. But pretty much there are these things called fortune components. Pretty much all the rare items, like the H items, or as the composite bows, or the random items like the Yuri suitcase or whatever, like those strange items like the masks and stuff as well, are now worth over 1.5 million GP because of Invention. They're needed to make some of the best jewelry in game, and you need 50 of them. So yeah, the prices are really, really high, and not that many people are doing clues. So even using clue scrolls, which I made a lot of money with, and if you can do them at the highest pace, which I understand you cannot do because you don't have the ultimate setup, you can make around 40 to 45 million GP an hour. But even if like lower skill levels, you could still be looking at 20 million GP an hour. And all you need to do is thieve ham members. And speaking about thieving, yeah, that also has been slightly reworked. You can now click, and as long as you're not getting caught, you don't have to click again. If you've done elves in the past in Priftness, then you know what I'm on about. But if you haven't, you pretty much click and you wait, and when you get caught, you need to re-click. It's pretty much to reduce the strain on people's hands when they're training thieving, and I quite like it. It used to be a relic power from Archaeology, but they pretty much made it into a real thing. But enough about all of that, and if you just want to do melee, you might even be 99 melee stats, and you might be looking for what to do next. Well, there's two metas going on right now. The easiest one by far is Mage. When you do the City of Santistan quest, which unlocks the Animate Dead spell, you pretty much become a tank when using magic tank armor, because it reduces your hits so dramatically that even like newer bosses can pretty much be AFK'd if you have good magic tank gear. But even if you have tier 70 Genodormic magic tank armor, you will still be able to easily tank like lower level bosses like God Wars Dungeon 1 and even God Wars Dungeon 2, which we'll get into, don't worry. It's good, and it's a very learner-friendly style. It's just very expensive to really get to the maximum amount of upgrades. Another way that you can go is range. Ranges with bows instead of crossbows, if you played around Nexus release, but even before that, bows are now the best style by far because we have new arrows. And these arrows are Elder God arrows. I know it all gets confusing, but trust me, when you get back into the game, it all makes sense. But these arrows are called Big Arrows, Jazz Arrows, Wen Arrows, and Full Arrows. The best ones are pretty much the big ones because they poison your target, and with each arrow that you shoot, the poison damage gets more. And with very long boss fights, that damage of your poison can literally hit 2,000 or 3,000 every single time. So it is really good, and all you need to do is just get a bow and get the big arrows because they scale down to the level of your bow, which is a very interesting concept. But if you want some more info on rotations, on how to really do PvM, I have an ability guide which I'll also link. I know there's a lot of links in this video, but I don't want to make this too detailed and too like confusing for everyone. So if you are interested in it, go check that out, because I understand that, especially if you played since 2008, combat has changed so much, so drastically with EOC, and even just in general, if you haven't played since EOC or since 2015, a lot of things have changed, and there's probably a lot of things you need to learn. So that guide will also be going over everything you need. But what bosses should you even be trying? Like maybe the last boss you've done is Bandos or Zamorak, or well, now we call it Krill because Zamorak the boss is actually in the game, but that is endgame, and we're not even going to be talking about that in this video. But pretty much what I would recommend is exploring God Wars Dungeon 2 or also the Heart of Gielinor. It's located in the desert. I'll put a screenshot on screen right now of where exactly it is, and there are 4 new bosses. It pretty much works like the original God Wars Dungeon 1, but it's God Wars Dungeon 2. It's 4 different bosses you can take on, and you can definitely solo them, and they are not that difficult. They will probably be difficult when you first start trying them out, but the mechanics are quite tame compared to like the newer bosses, and they're usually along the lines of dodging or standing in the right position. There's probably a lot of good guides on it that I would recommend you watching, and it's definitely going to be a challenge for you, but once you have that done, then you could start moving into some more complex dungeons. We also now have elite dungeons, which pretty much are raids. You pretty much go into a dungeon. There are 3 big bosses, and there are all these like meaty bosses that you can kill, but don't have to. And regular monsters that you have to slay through to get to the final boss that can drop good items. They are a lot more difficult than God Wars Dungeon 2, which I want to point out, but definitely a good goal to work towards. And if you have done all that, and you're still looking for a challenge, but we'll get into one of the little challenges there as well, then you have Elder God Wars Dungeon, aka God Wars Dungeon 3, as well. Because, yeah, you missed a lot. We have 2 more God Wars Dungeons now, and they're all really, really good, especially for what they were at the time. But Elder God Wars Dungeon 3 pretty much is the more difficult version. If you remember chat, well, we also now have the Kiln Cape, which, if you missed it, that's also in the area of the Tsar, which you need to do a quest for. But we also now have Zok capes. Yes, Zok, the ultimate Tsar boss, is in the game, and that is now the new best in slot cape. It is very, very difficult. It's no longer 60 waves. It's like, I think it's like 18 waves or something, but it's a very difficult boss fight, and I don't expect you to be going for it. It's way too endgame. But one thing that's in Elder God Dungeon 3 that might be interesting to you is Arc Laser. Arc Laser is pretty much the best learner boss when it comes to RuneScape, because you can literally turn off certain mechanics or turn on certain mechanics, like, for example, prayer flicking, or having to dodge a certain beam that comes out, or having to deal with minions. You can mix and match them. You can turn all 5 of them on. You can turn 1 on, 2, 3, whatever. In whatever combination, it is all available for you to turn on. So those are some tips that I want to be giving you, and I can give you so many tips, but the best thing that I could recommend you is just have fun and play the game. And if you have any specific questions, either leave them in the comment section down below, or join my Discord or my streams and just ask them, because I'm always down, and so is my community, to answer any of your questions. So I really hope that you found this updated guide very useful. If you did, definitely go give it a like, join in with discussion in the comment section down below, subscribe if you're new, and my name's Chevalric, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.